So as far as detailing go, I get a lot of people that ask me about equipment, that ask me about tools and products and things like that, and a lot of times it's all based on like, what should I buy? What should I buy? And sometimes, you know, we always want to get suckered into the biggest, baddest toys and things like that. But I've had quite the experience as far as detailing goes, and as far as, you know, carpet and upholstery cleaning, I do that as well. Yeah, but I've had quite the experience as far as detailing goes about why the biggest, baddest toys is not always the most important things. And you know, I get a lot of people that ask, well, do I need a steamer to detail cars? Or what steamer should I buy to detail cars? Sometimes it's not always what steamer should you buy, it's do you need one? You know what I'm saying? Or what extractor should I buy to detail cars? It's not always what extractor should you buy, do you need one? And is the price of a good one justifiable for how often you're going to use it, and how much money you're making doing detailing, and your knowledge as far as working around having one. You know what I mean? Like when I first started detailing cars, I went instantly into buying the biggest, baddest toys. I didn't want to hear anybody say, oh, you don't need this and you don't need that to be able to get good results. I didn't want to hear that, because with me, you know, like this would have been like my third rodeo with starting a small business. And I know that a lot of times, you know, the proof is in the tools that you choose to use. You know what I'm saying? I've learned that, you know, like a lot of dramatic results can happen because of the tools that you have. And sometimes just trying to work around them is not always the best way, you know, to get certain results. And as far as cleaning goes and things like that, you know, to an extent, yes, that's true. But then to an extent, you know, a lot of times, man, the bigger and badder toys and things like that can actually complicate your workflow, especially if you haven't really worked up to a point of realizing why you need it and where it could fit into your workflow. So at the same time, you know, all of this is right. You know, better tools, yes, is right. Yes, better tools can make the job better, but yes, better tools can make the job worse, and learning how to work around them and just investing in your knowledge, you know, can be the better thing, because investing in your knowledge is money you don't have to spend on $1,000 steamer or $1,000 extractor. Like you see my big mighty steamer back here. Investing in your knowledge could save you from having to buy one of those. You know, that's $1,000 in your pocket. Like, what is $1,000 to a lot of people? I mean, well, if you live in like New York or something like that, that's rent, you know what I'm saying, for a 1-bedroom, half kitchen, half bathroom. But I mean, if you live where I live in Toledo, $1,000, it's like a year's worth of like your electric bill, or like a year's worth of your gas bill, or anything. I mean that's a brand new wardrobe for, you know, like 3 kids. You know what I mean? $1,000 is a lot of money. It can buy a lot of stuff, all depending on where you live. So I'm gonna kind of give you a story, right? So like when I first started detailing, the very first thing I went and bought was shop vac, steamer, rags, brushes, extractor. I had like a Rug Doctor. Well, I started with the Rug Doctor portable spot cleaner. That broke down. Then I went and bought the Rug Doctor Mighty Pro X3. Because I was, I worked for a long time as a janitor, I was already so used to using those, expensive tools to get the job done. I already had the knowledge as far as how those things worked and where you can apply them and things like that. It's just that I didn't have enough room as far as me having my own business and being able to do whatever I want. I didn't really have the room and the freedom to try new things in order to get the job done. When you work for somebody else, it's like, this is the system, this how you do it. But when you work for yourself, you're like, okay, I get to try it this way, I get to try it that way, I get to try this product, this brush, that brush. I don't have to just use what they give me. I can use whatever I can think of. I was able to just use whatever I could think of because I always tried to find out the best way to get me the best results faster and cheaper. So, I was always trying to figure out how to get the best results faster and cheaper, and conveniently for my customer. And I was always trying to figure out, like how to balance those four things. How to get the best results first, faster, cheaper, and it being convenient on my customer. Long term, not just just for the period of time that their car is being detailed. Because I know a lot of people, man, they'll tell you to do a whole lot of stuff that'll just eventually just make matters worse over time, just because it's fast and it's cheap. I try not to do that kind of stuff. So I went and bought all the tools I was able to afford. And I've even heard people say and teach, and even I have said and taught this, to people in photography and videography. It's like, well, you don't always want to start off with the most expensive thing because you don't really know if you need it. It might look like you might need it because you might see something that somebody did with it, and you might be like, well, those are the results I want to get, so therefore I got to buy that thing. And it's like, well, maybe they bought that because of how they use it, but maybe the results they got, they could have gotten any other way. It's just that all they care about when they bought something is how they need to use the gear they have, and not about always what kind of results they can get. So how to get the best results. So like the best results is first not always found in a toy or a tool. It's first found in your knowledge, because a lot of times you can get the you can get the same results with thousands of dollars less invested in gear. You can get the best results with thousands of dollars less invested in gear if only you would take the time and learn and experience and invest in your knowledge. And investing in your knowledge, a lot of times you can't just learn it from somebody. You can't just learn it from watching YouTube videos. You have to actually get hands-on. You have to find work. You have to find things to practice on. And you have to put yourself in that position to be able to figure out how you need to work and how things work best for you. You know what I'm saying? Because every tool might work the same, but every person doesn't work the same. So therefore, if I bought a $1,000 steamer to do a certain thing, that doesn't mean that you should, because you might do different work than I do, and you might, your brain might process information and the workflow differently than mine do. You know what I mean? And then there's a lot of other things that might go into play. I might have other things to be able to work with it, and you might not have those things, but you have other things that might be able to work with something else if you just went a different route, So over time, long story short, I ended up buying a Mighty Light extractor for about $300 or something like that. And I was always caught up into this heated extractor. I need this hot water. I need that heat. I need, I need that heat to be able to break up that dirt and grime, and it looks so seductive when you're watching YouTube reviews of the gear, and you watching people show you what they do with it, and all these affiliate links pop up, and you watching all these commercials and stuff like that. You know, like commercials and affiliate links, they have their place. But what a lot of people don't tell you, and they can't tell you, and I don't blame them for not telling you because it's not their job, but that you can actually live without it. You really can. You know, there's ways to get those results without, you know, that steam, or without that heat, or without that this, or without that. There's ways to do it. It's just that it's not their job, you know, to put in the commercial, hey, even though you can do this with this, you can actually live without it. Disclaimer. Like, they're not going to say that to you. Because, I mean, that's not what they're doing today. I mean, there's things I'm not going to say in this video because it's not in this video's place to do that. You know, I'm not going to tell you that, hey, you know, if you eat healthy before the job, you could probably work harder. You know, it's not that kind of video. So long story short, after I bought my heated extractor, I tried to use it for everything. I tried to use it on every carpet. I tried to use it on every upholstery job. And over so many times of using it, you know, detailing dealers' cars day in and day out, after so many times of using it, especially being a detailing beginner, I realized that it started to get in my way in a way. So there was things that I didn't really foresee before I went and bought the biggest, baddest tools. I didn't really foresee the maintenance that they was gonna, you know, have to deal with, especially buying something used. So, you know, having a $1,200 extractor that you bought for $300, it don't sound like that big a deal until the vacuum motor burnout, or into the pump burnout, or into the heater burnout, you know. So, like, I didn't really foresee the maintenance that bigger and better tools were going to take. Another thing that I didn't really foresee was the fact that, well, a heated extractor has to be plugged into a 20 amp only, or else you can't use the heat. So most of the time, I didn't really think about this when I'm going to my customer's house and I'm plugging in the customer power. 90% of the time, I don't have a 20 amp plug available. So when we're all so concerned about heat, oh, I need the heat, it's like, well, then you get the extractor, and most of the time you can't even use the heat, you know. And we don't really see that as detailing beginners. We might have read it, we might have looked at it, but when we thought and processed our information, we didn't process the information that way. Most of the time I won't be able to use heat, because if, you know, I'm not gonna go and check every customer's circuit breaker to make sure that that plug that I'm plugging into is a 20 amp. I mean, that's like, it's too confusing to do something like that. I'd much rather do it a different way, you know. So after that, you know, all that hot water, you know, all those butterflies of hot water extractor nonsense just kind of went away, because most of the time I had to use the extractor without the heat, which then would have made it what? It would have made it the same as using something cheaper. You know what I'm saying? It worked the same as using something cheaper. I had the Rug Doctor Mighty Pro X3 with the upholstery tool before I bought the Mighty, and I sold the Rug Doctor to buy the Mighty because I'm like, yeah, I got heat. I have heat. And I'm like, you know what? I bought that Rug Doctor for $75. Well, I sold it for like $250, but I'm like, man, I probably would have just been fine with that if only I wasn't so, you know, trying to rush and buy the biggest, baddest thing just because I think it's gonna get me the best results. So, you know, I fell out of love with, you know, I need the best extractor and I need the best shampooer. Yeah, the best extractor and stuff, you know, they have their benefits. You can change the upholstery tools on them, and you can open them up and work on them if something go wrong, and you know what I'm saying? All that and all that. So I kind of stopped using my extractor. In fact, I found a reason to just sell it. I sold my Mighty Light that I bought for $300. I sold it. And you want to know what I did to use, for an extractor? I bought a second, well, I actually had a second shop vac. I had a 6-gallon, and then I also bought the rigid 4-gallon that everybody rave about for detailing. Now that was one of my best investments because that sucks up trash like it's nothing, and it's compact and it fits into every little nook and cranny of my car. And I had a spare rigid 6-gallon that I would use in a pump sprayer to just, like suck up water. So I would have a pump sprayer with water, and I would have a second rigid shop vac that I bought secondhand for 30 bucks as an extractor for carpets and upholstery. And a lot of people would ask, like, man, what shampooer did you buy to be able to get these carpets so clean? And I'm like, well, I got a $30 shop vac and a $20 pump sprayer, and I'm getting, borderline the same results, if not better. Because why? I've got, vacuum attachments are a little more versatile than the solid stainless steel industrial extractor attachment. Yeah, you can get an extractor crevice tool, but it's too bulky. It's pointless to even use. It don't really fit in places. You can't bend it around corners and things like that, but I can do that with a shop vac attachment. And so, that's how I extracted carpets for about a good year, until I found another Mighty Light for $50, and it just needed a vacuum motor, and it needed a hose and upholstery tool. Luckily, I already had that stuff because I had a big portable extractor that I bought first because of carpet cleaning and things like that, and it already had those things to go with it. So I'm like, I already have those things at home. I have a spare vacuum motor, so I drove a couple hours to Cleveland, spent the $50 on a Mighty Light. It was worth it at that point. It was only 50 bucks. I was pretty much picking it up for free. So for something like that, I could recommend you having a $1,200 tool if you're getting it for almost nothing and you don't mind working on it if something's wrong with it. And so with using that extractor, I kind of learned my lessons for why a pump sprayer and a shop vac may or may not be the best thing for everything. And I learned how to make an extractor fit into my workflow because I learned how to work without one. So I started with one, and then I learned how to work without one, and now I'm like, oh, okay, so now I know how to make a big industrial extractor fit into my workflow. I know how to do this now. I know when it's probably best to use that pressurized water that come from the extractor. I know when it's best to go that route, and I know when it's just really not worth it. I could just spray some solution down and soak it up with cotton rags. I learned when it wasn't appropriate to pull out the big gun, because I started with it and then had to work without it, and then realized why one could actually matter, especially for upholstery. Certain upholstery, you don't want to spray water on and let the water sink too far in, because then it'll get into the cushion too far and start bringing things up to the surface. That's why the whole pump sprayer and shop vac thing just didn't really cut it for upholstery all the time. It worked as long as you know how to use it, but after a while I realized where this can and can't go wrong, and then on certain carpets, like sometimes you need that 120 psi pump, to be able to break certain things off the carpet, and sometimes you just don't. So I learned how to make one fit into my workflow. Therefore, I was able to get my money's worth. Therefore, you know, I had the knowledge and I was faster at the job than I was before. Now, fast forward to the steamer. So, you know, I was still using my McCulloch 1385 steamer. And I'm like, well, maybe I need a little something more. You know, maybe I need a bigger, badder steamer. Maybe I need a more industrial steamer, if I even needed a steamer at all. And I would try to find reasons to use my steamer for everything. I use my steamer for everything. I started off with the steamer. I just thought that you detail cars with a steamer better, even though I knew a lot of people said, I've done this with just rags and a brush. And I'm like, not me. I've got a steamer. I'm going to use it. And so I stopped using my McCulloch steamer after I bought the Mighty steamer off Amazon about a year and a half ago, maybe a couple years ago. I actually bought it from a company that was a Mighty authorized dealer, and it was secondhand. I bought it for like $700 when I got my last income tax check from working a job. And this is when I first started to detail cars every single day. Like, this is what I did to make 100% of my income. So I actually had the money to buy it. I just didn't, you know what I mean, until then. So I would use that Mighty steamer on a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, the Mighty steamer didn't come with attachments at the time, but I still learned how to work without it. I ended up buying the attachments later. The problem with that steamer, though, is that the steam gun broke and I was unable to use the steamer. So I had a $700 paperweight. I was unable to use the steamer, and the only way I could get the steamer fixed was unless I sent it in so that Mighty could then reconfigure it to be their newer version. And that would have costed me another $600. And I'm like, man, if I would have known I was going to be paying $1,200, $1,300 for a steamer, I would have just bought the thing brand new. So I got mad. I stopped using it, you know. I said to myself, maybe I could just find another used one down the line and just use that as a part steamer. I mean, it's worth its money in parts. So I just kind of stopped using it. In fact, I stopped using the steamer altogether. And I learned how to make use of brushes and make use of rags and just make use of certain chemicals. Now, certain chemicals and brushes is my thing, because in detailing they always tell you that you're going to need a degreaser and an all-purpose cleaner, and they always have certain degreasers, like, oh yeah, like Meguiar's or Super Clean or Purple Power or this or that. Or, you know, I've always used Simple Green. Simple Green worked right. You know, it worked good, and I could get it off the shelf at any store. It worked well enough to work, you know. But I learned the ins and outs of different chemicals. You know, like one of my more favorite chemicals that I learned from being a carpet and upholstery cleaner outside of detailing, I learned the power of like ammonia, peroxide. I've learned about encapsulation cleaners, things like that. So like things like ammonia would literally melt the dirt right off of a surface, just like a steamer would. It would melt the dirt right off a surface as fast as a steamer would. However, steamers are very dangerous. Like, not dangerous to your health. I mean, they can be, but steamers can damage like black trim. I mean, steamers can damage like the color on things. It could peel that luster off of things like cup holders, and it could just kind of make black things look a little faded. And so I would always try and stay away from doing that with a steamer in certain crevices and things like that. And then also, like, steamers can like fog up the thing with a speedometer and things like that is. And I mean, like steamers can accidentally shoot too much water and get inside of electronics, and all depend on where you're pointing it. So you just need to know how to use one. But I would use a steamer for all like access stuck on dirt, especially like on steering wheels. Man, you put 8 ounces to a gallon of ammonia, 8 ounces to a gallon of water of ammonia in a bucket, and put some gloves on, of course, and get a rag, put it in a bucket. Don't spray it. You don't want to spray ammonia because it gets in the air and you breathe that in. But you put it on a bucket and just wipe stuff, and you'll realize dirt would melt off just as fast as it would melt off with the steamer. And like, if it wasn't for having to work without, you know, those, or like those fancy tools like a steamer and a hot water extractor, I probably wouldn't have cared to try something like that. Another good thing about ammonia though is that it also leaves no residue, because ammonia is basically more like a gas-based liquid. It evaporates as it dries and it doesn't leave itself behind, and it's also it's high pH in its form until it evaporates and it becomes nothing. So like, it starts off as high pH, that's how it's able to clean, and then when it dries it becomes nothing, and it's able to leave the fabric and the floors in a pH neutral state. But a lot of the detailers, they say, well, you got to spray degreaser on the seats and then steam them and then wipe it up and then extract and then do all this. And what people don't tell you is that degreasers leave alkaline salts and residue and stuff like that. It leaves soap behind in the floors and in the seats, and it caused the stuff to resoil faster, or it caused things to turn white. If it wasn't for having to work, you know, like if it wasn't for, you know, like if it wasn't for having to work without the biggest, baddest tools and stuff, I wouldn't have never really took the time to investigate things that I heard, you know what I mean? Like things that I kind of knew but just didn't really care to do because I thought that I was good without it, you know? So another thing is, you know, I learned the power of just cleaning upholstery and carpet with rags. I learned that a hot water extractor gets in the way. So I heard about this ammonia thing, and I learned about this end cap cleaner stuff. I heard that ammonia, you know, can boost the strength of certain end cap cleaners, and end cap cleaners are pretty much like dry foam cleaners. And they're safe to use on carpets and upholstery and things like that. And then you boost the strength of your end cap with, you know, about 4 ounces of ammonia, depending on how much you're putting in there, and it cleans better. Man, I've cleaned so many seats. Like, I'm talking about, you know, like I'm talking about like minivan seats, like Chrysler Town and Country. You know how their seats are made, and then you get that caked on dirt, that just that caked and baked in stuff. You try and hit that with a steamer, you're gonna get only half of it off. You try and hit that with a hot water extractor, you may not even get that much of it off. But spray some ammonia on it and wipe it with a cotton towel, and you will see literally a night and day difference. I'm talking about you can make a difference bigger than you can make with a $1,000 tool. And all you need to do is just know what you're doing. However, I did tell you not to spray ammonia, but as long as you're willing to take the risk and make sure that you have adequate ventilation and make sure that you're wearing a face covering, like some kind of mask or something like that, then you should be fine. But I will say this, do it at your own risk. I also heard that ammonia cannot go on tinted windows. I don't know that for sure. I've never tried it. I heard it and just never wanted to take the risk to figure it out. So I try not to get ammonia on tint. That's why I don't like to spray it all the time. But if you had to and you had the luxury of doing it, just try it. You know, get you a pack of terry cloth, cotton towels, and put like, you know, like 4 ounces of ammonia or even 8 ounces of ammonia. Look, I'm like, you can use it straight for all I care, but the more you cut it down, the less it's gonna smell. And it's still like up to a certain point, it's just gonna work. Spray it, hit it with a drill brush if you want to do that, and get some cotton towels and wipe it up. I guarantee you, like, you'd be shocked. You'd be like, what in the world? I didn't know this 99 cent a gallon thing was able to do something that even $2,000 equipment, you know, like $1,000 equipment can't do as fast as this can. Not to mention, this is gonna take 30 minutes to dry and not 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? And having to work without the biggest, baddest tools is the reason why I was able to learn these things. And sometimes when you got your head too caught up in what the detailing community is teaching, and you got your head too caught up into what, you know, the product reviewers and stuff like that are teaching and telling you that you need if you want to do XYZ, you know, like, you miss out on opportunities to just be able to execute the ability of gaining knowledge. You know, all that time I thought you can't do this without a steamer, I missed out on opportunities to be able to get the job done an hour faster, you know, which could have been more money an hour, which could have been another car I could have fit in that day. But I mean, here I am waiting 20 minutes for a steamer to heat up and doing all these hoops and hurdles in order to be able to use it, just because, you know, I was naive and thought that that's what I needed. And that's what I started with, you know. I mean, here I am trying to find a 20 amp outlet for a hot water extractor to heat up, and I'm not even paying attention to the fact that I could have just done that with rags and an end cap cleaner, you know, and a drill brush. A drill brush will save your life. It really will. Look, a drill brush and some cotton rags or some microfibers would literally make upholstery cleaning so much easier. You can get a $30 drill from Walmart. You know, like, you can spend like $10 on some drill brush attachments. There you go. Like, that's your upholstery shampoo right there. Just go get the appropriate upholstery shampoo liquid and mix it right, and there you go. That's your shampooer right there. Like, a lot of times people don't know those things because the industry don't really do a good job at educating people on how to do the job. They do a good job at educating people on things to buy. You know what I'm saying? Even though I might be telling you, like, you know, like, I might be telling you to go buy a drill brush, but I'm telling you to buy a drill brush for 30 bucks instead of a hot water extractor, you know, for $1,200. I only use my extractor when I have to extract things like spills or grease and things like that that just can't really be picked up in a rag like that. I have reasons why I pull out my extractor. I have reasons why I got my steamer sitting here. You know, I've got my steamer sitting here because I'm finally glad to use it. I had to pull the gun off my McCulloch 1385 and attach it onto this in order to be able to make it work. And like, I use it in the car. I use it to, you know, like, to blast spots out of the upholstery. And for the rest of the way through, you know, I just end cap it. I mean, like, that's what I do rest of the way through. I've got a Mighty Light sitting in a storage unit. I didn't even pack it. I'm detailing all this week long. I actually have the stuff. Why don't I use it? It complicates my workflow. It makes things more difficult than what they have to be, because I have the knowledge to know how certain things can be done cheaper, better, and faster, and more conveniently on my customer. If somebody told me I spilled a gallon of milk in my car and it's been in here for a week and it smells moldy and it smells like spoiled milk, then I go grab my Mighty Light. I would never try to end cap something like that. I go grab my Mighty Light and some kind of, you know, deodorizer. I'll go grab my air mover, try and dry it up. But I don't just automatically resort to the biggest, baddest tools just because I have them, because sometimes they get in the way. A lot of times they get in the way. a bulldozer is one of the biggest, baddest cars you can drive. I would never take that to the grocery store. I would never go take that to go pick my kids up from school in. A dually truck, man. I mean, burning diesel. And I'm trying to travel out of town for a meeting. No, I'll take my Toyota Corolla. It's cheaper on gas. I mean, that's a better car for the job. You know what I'm saying? And sometime, man, just knowledge is better. You know, knowledge is better than gear, always. But sometimes knowledge will show you how to make gear apply to your workflow. So like, you can't just walk into a job with just knowledge and no equipment. I mean, you won't be able to get the job done. But if you walked into a job with all the equipment you can think of and no knowledge, you're in for it. Like, you have to have a perfect balance of knowledge. I mean, you could take as much knowledge as you possibly can, but then you got to have a perfect balance of gear for what I'm making, for what kind of job I'm doing. You know, I would never take, you know, $2,000 worth of extractors and steamers and things like that to go and do $50 cars at dealerships. It'll never work. I would not do that, because if something on this break down, it's going to cost me more than $50 to fix. More than $50 to fix. I mean, shipping is $50, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, if you ever try to get something shipped from Mighty, bro, it's an arm and a leg for some odd reason. I'm not saying it's them, but like, it might just be who they go through to ship this stuff. So other than that, man, I'm just kind of rambling about at this point. Have a good day, guys. I hope somebody learned something from this. And I'm sorry this video is so long, but it's long because I'm trying to say everything everybody won't tell you in a way that a person can understand it. So there you go. Have a good one.